Usually,
We get
We're
dangerous at
on,
times.
we're live. So, all right. Would you all please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. There. Well, we got a big crowd tonight, and a reporter out there. So we'll start off a couple of things. We're going to start off with an assessors meeting tonight. So I'll call the assessor meeting to order, and then once we adjourn that, we've got a couple of things to go over and mention some changes for the select board meeting. So with that, I'd like to call the Board of Assessors, Town of Damariscotta, a meeting to order Wednesday, September 18th. We've got everybody here, so that's always good. And yeah, so we can move right into official action items. There's some abatements. Does everybody have a chance to look those over? Any questions or anything, or look pretty straightforward? All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatements for personal property of account 845, account personal property 794, and real estate 1567.
All right. Thank you, Josh. You have a second?
I'll second.
Andrew's going to second that one. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All right. And we have a supplemental property, personal property.
I'll make a motion for tax supplemental of personal property account 794.
All right. Thank you,
Second.
Josh. I think I heard Tom second that one. All right. Any other discussion? No. All those in favor? Okay.
We got to remember to sign them too.
So what's that?
We need to remember to sign them.
Yes, let's sign them. We've got them all right here. So, all right. So discussion items. We did, Andy did attach a tax exemption property list here that we had kind of requested to take a look over, and any
Yeah.
comments, questions? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're up.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, and I don't, maybe this is for Andy or, you know, or someone else who's been on the board a little bit longer. When we like, we have to do this equalization, it's just like if we fall below a certain percentage of the state's valuation, so we have to increase everybody by 10, 15, 20% or whatever the number is. Do we do that with the exempt properties as well on the ledgers, so that we're looking at apples to apples? Because I was trying to figure out a calculation of exempt property to valuation, and so you had the valuation of 424 because it's in the document, and I didn't know if I was looking at apples to apples, or am I looking at apples to, I don't know, pears or something.
So are you talking about when we did the adjustment, the 19%? They would get adjusted as well.
They do.
Yes.
It goes across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tax exempt. Okay.
Okay.
Confirm that they did, but that's
They
should, because
should
the
be.
way they did that is I think they applied it to the land value. So
Yes.
the land value data should have just been standard
Standard.
application
Yeah.
Okay.
across the board.
Gotcha.
Okay, then the number is, if that's right, then it's tax exempt represents like 16% of the town property.
Of the remaining, so the number that we show in our tax commitment form was like the 400 and
Right, so I added the 424 and the 78,
then took it off of it.
and then I did a percentage of that, so that's where I came up with the 16. And I guess my question is that really high for a community, or is that average,
Seems
or is
it.
it low?
Seems it,
I
but
don't know, so my gut is that it feels high.
It's a
but,
lot. Yeah. Yeah.
But also,
Seems like
not
that.
all communities have a hospital in it.
Oh, true.
I mean,
I mean, this also has your
But you do
schools,
have
your
traffic, you
schools,
still
your
have the-
infrastructure for your
Oh,
water, sewer lines.
yeah.
I mean, you can take all out, if you took the quasi municipal and the municipal side, the schools,
Mhm.
and took that out, it'd be interesting to see.
The only thing I didn't include was the property that you would own as just regular residents and had those exemptions. I think I got everything else other than
Right.
the homestead, veterans, those types of things. So
Right. Yeah. It's tax exempt. Yeah.
it was arranged. I did probably see, I did arrange them just in alphabetically by the exemption type.
Right,
And
right.
I did it by value first, and I was like, well, it kind of jumps around if you're trying to look at the different
Yeah.
types of exemptions and
Yeah,
Once I did include that homestead veteran and veteran widow, that was slightly different. That was Schooner's Cove. And so that's,
right,
they're
that's-
entitled just because of how they're set up, and they look at the residents that qualify for that, because some do own a share in that, some
Mhm.
just rent.
Mhm.
So the ones that own a share are entitled. How they work it out on their end
Right.
to make sure theirs is different, but they have to present that list to the assessor every year to prove and show who owns a share and if they qualify, and they still have to fill out
Yeah.
the paperwork.
I think clearly though, we have the majority of the tax exempt properties in at least within some of the towns like Noblesboro, Jefferson, Raymond, whatever, Bristol. And maybe we ought to put toll booths up and charge for, because a lot of these services are all, well, servicing these other towns.
Sure, Tom, that's like putting up parking meters.
Well, actually, I had another thought because
Good luck.
we were at the, that county-wide meeting and they were talking about all these different programs and figuring, and clearly it's the schools that are driving it, but in terms of just the valuations and stuff, but it seems like the state tries to become creative in terms of just trying to figure out how to get at some of these issues. Has anyone ever considered this calculation, the tax exempt to total valuation in the town? And if you're above a certain amount, maybe the state should help your community.
You would think when it came
yeah.
to revenue sharing, you would hope that that would be part of their formula for revenue sharing, certainly.
Yeah.
From our perspective, a school might have a different.
Yeah, because they're here, it's fine,
Right.
but it does create a burden
Mhm.
on the other. Because they use services, they just do.
We're one of the smaller service center communities in the state, but it would still be
Mhm.
interesting. I don't know if I can get it quickly or not, but just see kind of where we stand with other service center communities relative to that 60%.
Comparison, the
Well, the
percentage.
question is on the percentage basis, because we're a small town, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some towns out there, I know, much smaller footprint, but some of those
Okay.
island communities, Frenchboro, Idaho, where they got state park, national park, and I think Frenchboro is like 90% is exempt.
Oh, yeah.
Idaho is over 50% because it's a national park is exempt. And so there's some examples where that's really on the extreme. And then, but I think if we could get the data from other service center communities on a
Yeah,
percentage
that-
basis, it might be interesting to kind of see.
That'd be interesting to see what the difference, yeah, if it's.
Not all have hospitals,
where
but I
that-
mean, they've got a higher percentage generally of these social services, nonprofits in their communities that might help us see where we stand. Comparing our exemption percentage to Noblesboro and Bristol is
You can't.
we're
really-
not quite
No.
apples to apples.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you could, if at some point you get a free minute, if you could take out like the quasi municipal and the school and our town owned properties. And just to see what the true, if you take that out, then we can really
back
see
that
the
back
true,
out.
true number.
Yeah, no, it would just be an interesting
Eye-opening.
number to have in discussions with
What
like
would
state
you-
legislators
What
and
would
other
you want
folks.
in it? What would you want out of it?
Although none of these things, I mean,
Well, someone like Josh had mentioned,
Yeah,
you get the
some-
quasi municipal
Oh.
sanitary district.
Yeah.
The school,
Mhm.
if you pull in the town owned property, you kind of pull those out. And it's just
Yeah.
kind of breaking it down to a.
Yeah, a little
I
bit.
mean, this is this is
Yeah.
everything. This is the true number, but then you have to look at things you can't, I'm not saying change, but you pull those out because they're not going anywhere. So.
yeah,
Well, I mean, if it keeps becoming an issue, if a lot of land transfers get gobbled up again and by different organizations, or keep getting more in,
Oh, it's,
we gotta figure out, is there a way you could charge like an impact fee if you're coming in here to provide
Well,
service?
and we've discussed different, pilots before.
right.
and What, and some of them, I mean, legally, sometimes there's something you do, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Go like
Couldn't
voluntary
legally,
pilots or.
legally, can you do a moratorium on any non-taxables coming into your town, Andy? Do you think that would there's a legal?
Not that I'm aware of.
I've had that question numerous times,
Mm.
folks too ask me, and I said, as far as I understand, if if they qualify and in the eyes of the state and the federal government, it's like
You gotta,
it is what it is,
Mhm.
So I get that question often.
I know.
Well, just stop approving.
stop
them.
approving
Like,
it.
yeah.
I think our hands
Yeah,
are.
state law, I mean,
tied.
if they qualify for the
qualify.
state statute, under state statute, you can't deny it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's, at any point, the town does have the right to say, we want you to reapply.
Mhm.
You know, if things are, you know,
Yeah.
maybe have changed slightly,
Mhm.
you know, the only place where I'm aware that you have that luxury of, you know, engaging in that pilot is if, my understanding is we do it with one of them up until the time they transferred ownership this past year, but I think Ledgewood Court had done a pilot to us because it was like a certain percentage of the income
Yes,
generated
it's
from
like-
the
yes,
rental or the
yes.
housing rental.
Yeah.
Income would come
That,
back.
that
and
was part
they
of
did
their
that.
initial,
they had a 2%
Yeah.
or something.
That's in
6% or something.
statute.
yeah.
Mm, yeah.
They did state removed from statute not too long ago that ability for us to assess that local fee for the same services they are entitled to. They don't have kids in school by way of those services, but they do have fire and police and those other things, and we have lost that ability. The only other option would be to try and work with legislator to sponsor a bill to try and get it back in.
And I do think it's probably the service center component that makes it so,
Well, because look, how
Pressing,
many
yeah.
people we have using
Right.
the hospital.
right, because,
And the hospital is like, I just added it quickly, it's like 38 million.
right. and-
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
the
impressive.
hospital is here.
Well, I mean, acknowledging it's an important part of the community too, right? For the services provided, the jobs it provides and what that means for the local businesses support and
Absolutely.
what do we have if we don't have that? And so there's that
Exactly.
balance and how do we make it equitable? And if there's a way to kind of look at how it works into the revenue sharing, at least there's,
Yeah.
we know there'd be some accommodation for acknowledging that.
Right.
But we lost our Rev two, like everyone else seemed to do
Mhm.
this year. And that was noticeable. That was about 50 grand
You're right.
of income that we lost.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So,
hospital's really important to us.
so here's another thing, Nolan, for your taxes, is the non-taxable entities. When you go to write your article, tax exempt properties.
Hmm.
Yep, 78 million. Yep. Is that right? My
Mhm.
glasses on. Yeah, it's considerable. Yeah. And I think it's an important thing to, for all of us to understand and have it out there. So as we realize, and I wonder too, collectively with the tax exempt properties, you know, if they, you know, one or the other, I mean, we see this all at once and I don't know if they'll see how much that totally is, you know, it's one thing for one tax exempt to say, well, not that big of a piece of the puzzle, but once you add that up, they go,
Well,
this is.
it's
this
not,
is worth
and,
that,
you know, to
yeah.
Andrew's point, I mean, they're important parts of the community.
Oh,
as well. I mean,
yeah,
I
there's a
mean,
lot
they
of-
just
yeah,
are.
yeah.
But they just don't contribute to
Yeah.
the revenue of the
But-
town.
No, they don't, but yes, they do. By employing people and the people spend their money here and.
But
which-
we're.
Well, much like a
but
business
we-
that
But we still have to provide service
I
that
agree.
is not getting reimbursed to provide that service.
Same
So-
thing can be
So
said. for-
everybody that is living here is providing that service for those entities.
Right.
And that same can be said for a for-profit business, you know, as they provide and
District,
employ.
Kids in school, I have to pay the
But you
kids
did.
in school.
It's a commitment.
I
Yeah.
know, I understand, and I do it willingly, but if you're, you know, there's lots of things that aren't a direct impact.
So we don't have to pay you?
And
All right.
we
there we
do
go.
know that, we do know that something like the vast majority, like 90% of the employees at Lincoln Health do not live in Damariscotta. They all commute in.
Well, there's no place for them to live.
Well, fair
Right, 'cause
enough.
the taxes are too high.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That too.
Fair enough.
Because of the non-tax property. That's a circular argument, isn't it? Yeah.
So here we go.
We can all agree.
Stop.
There is.
So if we- I would just like to see the number of all the town and quasi municipal and that stuff removed, just to see, you know, it used to be like 53 million
Mhm.
before. I
It's a
don't-
high percentage. Yeah, if we can get at some point, get a correction and give us a little bit, I would say more realistic, but a different number to look at too. And then
Yeah.
it's something we got to keep our eyes on. Yeah. Like Josh says, in Andy's free time, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's easy. You can just reshuffle it. And-
Yeah, reshuffle it around. So, but it's an important, thanks for doing this. So
I mean, it's gonna be in the ballpark of about 12 million, it looks like, to remove, or 12.5,
Pull those
probably,
out.
somewhere in that ballpark.
we can go from there.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you.
Enough of that conversation.
Any other discussion while we're in Board of Assessors meeting? No, okay. There's no,
Make a motion
no
to
other
adjourn.
business. Josh, gonna
Adjourn
make a motion to
assessors.
adjourn? I'll second. And all those in favor of adjournment? Okay, good there. All right, with that, I'll call the select board meeting of Wednesday, September 18th, down Damariscotta to order. Gavel, chunk, there we go. We have one somewhere. They won't let me.
Happy to bring it anytime you want it.
Yep, won't give me a gavel. The guy on the earphones over there won't like it, so, a couple of quick things I'm gonna, if it pleases the board, I'd like to add an executive session, in tonight.
Is that number 7?
It'll be, yes, we'll move 6, yeah, that'll be 7, we'll move adjournment to 8, so there we go, thank you. And I'll, when we get to that, we'll get to the MSRA and all that stuff, but if that's all right with everybody, we'll add that on the
Mhm.
end, so.
Yeah.
We good? All right. Good enough. Let's see. So let's get rolling here. That's right. We have, yeah, I'm trying to find him, Andrea. Yeah,
11.
there we go.
Oh.
Thank you, Andy. Right there. Okay. So let's get through some minutes here. We have the minutes of the 7th. Does anybody have any comments, additions, changes?
Tom's eagle eye always fixes.
Yes, he's pretty.
No,
quick.
no, I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't.
The assessor is Rob Duplessis, not Smith.
No, yeah, that's right.
Rob Duplessis is the assessor. We got it as Rob Smith. It's the only thing that jumped out when I was looking
Oh,
through it
yes.
quick.
Okay, we got this combined. That's all right. All right. Yep. So, okay.
Duplessy?
Duplisia, I believe.
SA?
Isea, yeah.
ISEA.
Okay.
All right. That's it on the 7th. Something was out there. All right, I'll move the minutes of the 7th with the spelling correction.
Second.
Andrew, you seconded? All right. Any discussion? Those in favor? Okay, how about the 20th? Don't see anything jumping out. That was at Round Top.
No, I wasn't there.
Yeah, you were there for that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, Tom, were you at that one?
No.
No,
Okay.
no, he wasn't there.
Yeah, it was all done through them. So, yeah.
Oh.
So that was just, yeah, just the 3,
Was it listed?
Josh
I thought it
and,
didn't.
I just wanted to make sure I couldn't remember.
yeah, you got it right. Yeah, it's just the 3.
Yeah, that one minutes wise was a little bit weird. I couldn't find the recording online to go back and verify, but it was asked of the board to attend to be part of a discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was more of a presentation.
Mhm.
So I didn't take as many notes. I tried to
That's fine.
capture what the board members had asked. I may have
Yeah, it's
missed
a hard one to
some.
try to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
Josh. Dan's gonna second. Awesome. All right, any discussion?
Dan.
So yeah, Dan. Yeah. Any discussion? All
Just
those
3
in
of
favor?
us. Just 3 of us.
Just the 3. Okay. No, all right.
That's right, just right.
Josh and myself and Dan. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and we've got 2 abstaining that they were not there. All right, okay, that's out of the way. We've got the 21st, we've got those tabled for now, so we'll move past that. So financial reports, everybody get a chance to look over payroll and accounts payable?
Mhm.
Good, okay. I'll move payroll 12.
I'll second.
Thank you, Josh. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, everybody? All right, we have AP 13.
I'll move AP 13.
Second.
All right, Tom, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Those are out of the way. All right, actually, we can, Andrew, if you don't mind, let's pass those down to Josh down there.
Start signing.
And yes, we'll send him down. We'll just pile him up with paperwork. I don't like, he likes getting crowded. We'll send the papers down, so.
Done early.
All right, we'll move on to 3, citizens' comments, and general correspondence. Anybody in? I don't see anybody there. Yeah, anybody in the crowd today? Nope, nothing. All right. So Andy, we have a letter of discussion for Elm Street winter maintenance.
Yes, I'd received a phone call last week about this property, the property owner's challenge in the wintertime on Elm Street. The front door and walkway for the tenants is particularly close to the curb, which makes it challenging in the wintertime when they're trying to clear snow from the roadway. And, you know, as the wing and the plows go up through there, you know, like everyone's property and driveway, you know, it always seems to, it's not time to do it right after you get done shoveling, but a lot of people do seem to find that it's,
Yeah.
I just shoveled, why'd you fill it in? Well, it's just what they came through. But so, you know, this is exacerbated because they're probably only 10 feet, maybe 15 feet from the curb. There's not a lot of room to
Very, very tight through
move
there.
that pile and still walk. So she's raising the question about whether or not the contract would allow, or if the town is willing to, because the property's in the C1, you know, remove the snow, or just make sure it's not, something's done differently so that it's not angled onto the property. Logistically, I don't really know that it's that simple. Not property owners, private property owners in town aren't afforded the luxury of having their property cleared generally. We have some exceptions in the back parking lot because of our obligation through some of the deed
Right,
language that we
deeds.
accepted. But other than that, there are other properties that do have it piled there, and they have to manage that. So it's not that simple. I said, you have to bring this to the board. The board will have to discuss. It's not something I can decide. There are some photos there that shows it wasn't cleared at that particular storm when that was taken to the curb line. And so I said, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We do need to do that just because the drainage runs along that side of the road.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And so we'll do better with this, you know, the contractor to communicate in the first couple of storms and see what we can do, but I didn't have a good answer for, given that the contract went out, it didn't have this included in there as part of the base bid, it'd be all extra. And we don't typically do this for private property, and the statute wouldn't allow us to
And we
without
don't even,
public interest.
we don't even do it for ourselves because
Liability.
There be a lot of other
Sidewalks.
C1 residences that
our own.
have the
Exactly.
same issue, like
Right.
is Water Street in C1?
Mhm.
So you do it for one, you're gonna have to do it for the rest, right?
That was
If they
my,
ask.
that was my,
That's the tricky part,
I
yeah.
had shared with her, is that there are others in that have to manage this as well on their properties, and
Mhm.
it's
We all do
challenging.
it.
Everybody
We
does it.
do it.
And then, I mean, we'll clear the sidewalks on business one, and then the state contractor comes down through and fills them back in, so.
Might be the case.
So that happens,
Mhm.
happens to us.
Mhm.
So,
Well, other than clearing Dan's front yard, we don't do it.
It accumulates on the.
yeah, it's,
Maybe
it's-
on the Elm Street side.
Yeah.
I know what she's talking about.
oh, yeah,
You know, it's yeah.
Yeah,
If it, you're in trouble if it freezes. That's all I know.
you gotta,
Otherwise,
you gotta move quickly and stay
Yeah.
on top of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's tight through there. I mean, there's not a lot you can do. Especially where you say, you know, statute wise, where it's private property and it's not an intentional effect, you know, or negligent effect of putting snow there. I mean, it's nature, so it's kind of hard
I
to.
want to know
Gotta
what year
turn
this
around,
is.
so,
We haven't
yeah.
had this much snow in years.
I don't know the day, yeah, it's just for the date is, yeah, but it's tight through there, yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And beyond the statute, I think, yeah, we have, you know, there's liability as well as what working on private property and.
so I'd say we're not going to consider it.
Really can't, yeah.
Mm-mm.
Played my own driveway many times. So,
Yeah.
you know, it does happen. It's unfortunate, but it's tight. So.
I think it's just property maintenance that you gotta do on your own house.
It's part of
Your
it,
property,
yeah,
so,
When you live in town.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's not much, I don't think we're gonna do anything, Andy, fortunately, but if.
I didn't have any good ideas when I was talking with her in terms of how the public interest could apply. There's no real public
Yeah.
walk through or sidewalk kind of trail going, you
Mm-mm.
know, I just don't really.
Yeah,
how
there
to
just,
make
it
it.
just isn't. It's the unfortunate architecture where the building is
Right.
and so it's part of that give and take where we can do what we can, but there's some responsibility there too, so. but,
And the only thing that we could potentially look at doing is when the snow dump is up for renewal, is to see if we can grab any part of Elm Street additionally. I think right now it's Theater and Elm on that kind of horseshoe.
Hmm.
Can be part of the snow dump. I don't think it goes far up Elm Street.
Mm-mm.
And that's
Oh,
the only
gotcha,
thing we
yeah.
could try and consider is somewhere up through there is to see if we can grab any extra. Same thing I want to try and do with Cross Street.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's,
Yeah, I mean, that's.
push it out on the Bristol Road doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Nope.
And to try and come in and turn left, you know, it can be a little challenging too, but if they just turn right and jockey into the parking lot, it can go down there. So that's, I know one change I do want to try and make for different reasons.
Yeah, she's, you know, if the, she has any further questions or anything, I mean, she's more than welcome to come in and we can discuss further, but I don't think we can do much about it. All right, well, we can move on. If there's no more citizens' comments snuck in there. Are we good? And let's move on to town manager's report. So nothing happening in town. We can move that right along.
Right.
So why is there, look, there's one, like, just a little paragraph of the back parking lot, you know, so.
How long do you want to be here?
We've been cutting and pasting that for 2 years, and then finally something's happening. We get like a half a paragraph. Yeah.
I do put more content in the updates. I do sign up for that.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and for the updates are great for those
Doing
are
Andy, yeah.
Yeah.
subscribe to those if we keep telling people all the time. So I don't know if anybody realizes where my location is. I get a lot of these questions. And we're referring folks to the card right now. Just hold it up, scan this.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Andy, sorry.
Yeah, last week was obviously a down week. They weren't here. I think there was some mobilization of fencing towards the end of last week, but nothing in earnest. There was a crew coming off of another project that now they're this week. And so they're full on at it. They brought a second excavator in, and after the test pits they dug on Monday, this week they realized what they were going to be working in, or had a better sense of what they'd be working in. And from what I was seeing, when they got below, the hole was below 4 feet, those sides started to just kind of slop in, and they had to get to 7 or 8 feet in spots. So what they've got now is they've started on that western end, kind of tag teaming with the machines. One's digging, one's filling trucks, and they're gonna, at the moment, try and just work in unison and kind of go. And so they've got probably 30 or 40 feet of the fabric laid right now with stone on it. There's one basin on the end towards the gulch there that they've put in already. They've hauled, I don't know how many truckloads out of material.
We're moving today.
They got 6 trucks coming and going. They leave, they go to their pit. There's a few in town dump sites that we were able to find for them that makes a much quicker turnaround than going to Whitefield. But they still need to go there to come back with stone. So they're kind of balancing that to kind of keep from downtime being too low, you know, too much downtime. They hit a little, you know, obviously some water. The tides right now are a little bit higher this month, at this point in the month. The tide cycle's where it's at. 11.5, I think, is projected for Saturday. 11 was today on the projection. So it's gonna be wet the next couple of days, where at that point where they're working right now. But you know, the reaction they got today was it's not as much as we thought it would be. So that's good.
Yeah,
Better. And so they'll keep working through that. As they work through, they'll start planning on, I think, placing the chamber system, which is down in the parking lot, stacked up near the bathroom, those yellow structures down there. That's the chamber system. There are about 6 or 7 trains, if you will, side by each, that are going to be running that parking lot, part of the parking lot length. And they'll start putting that together either late Thursday or probably Friday. But the engineers will be on site tomorrow. The folks that manufactured and designed this particular system that's going in will be on site to talk with them tomorrow if there's any questions. I'd mentioned to Daryl, I don't know if at some point during this project, if the board wants to do a site visit of sorts and talk with our engineers or the construction manager there. If that's of any interest, we can try and schedule something.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
We're gonna park.
Get you in. We'll get you in.
I don't have a
I'll
permit.
find a spot for
I have a permit.
you. Get you in. Park it down. But no, that would be great. Just feel them out and see what,
Yeah, that'd be
try to work
interesting.
around their schedule, whatever.
You find any artifacts or anything digging through there?
Not that I know of.
Hopefully not, Tom.
I'm pretty
you-
sure it's just
Hey, you
Well,
never know. You never know.
no artifacts in it.
Yes. No.
As far as parking goes, because of the stability of or instability of that subgrade soil. They've had to kind of really fan out those back slopes. So we were hoping that they could kind of draw a line where those telephone poles were behind like Newcastle Realty and those shops, and at least kind of keep one section of that double row of parking that was there. And they've had to pretty much take all of that. They've got a truck right now tied off to that middle telephone pole holding that up because the back slope is right up against the pole. So we've had to take a little bit more, but as they work through that end, the way they're doing it now, as opposed to digging the whole hole, then going back through it all, they're going to likely be able to, they want to open it up as much as possible and work with the business as much as possible. So they're eager to try and move it along as fast as they can while meeting spec. And as they do that, they'll be able to kind of open up that other end. And that's the biggest bang for the buck there, in terms of parking spots. It gets super narrow kind of back towards the other end, towards Rennie's. And right now there's a lot of room down there, but when you look at trucks coming for the construction site and freight trailers that need to get in and get turned around, if we got one row of cars in there and anything beyond the 6 that we could probably fit park somewhere where they shouldn't, now someone's not getting a delivery. Now the trucks can't get in. And so I just said, let's just close it for the weekend. We're going to try and open it up a little bit. I mean, by a little bit, I was working on an update that I don't think went out yet, but probably 4 to 6 spots. It's not going to be a lot.
A few, but
Because you still have freight coming on the weekends for some of these folks. So I don't want it
And that's
to
really
get into an
priority
issue
is
with
Yeah.
the
allowing
truck
to get
can't
some
get turned
delivery done.
around.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
saw with it open yesterday, trying to do some parking in there, and
Mhm.
it was, there's times when it worked and there's
Right.
times when it didn't, but
we'll-
but yeah, right. But yesterday they didn't have the amount of trucks hauling either, so
Right.
big change today with the
Mhm.
two-way traffic coming through there with the trucks, so we just got to stay out of their way.
Right.
Yeah.
The post office parking spots are available, as they have been. Parking behind Rennie's and behind Artsake and behind Damariscotta Center is available for those folks. There's not many spots there, but there are a few that can get to those. You can get behind the bathroom, Warren's building, you can get back there. So there's access. There's a through lane there for traffic to get to the boat launch off of Water Street. There's a 15, I think, foot wide travel way through there between the guardrail and the fence. So
We get around. It's been managed all week pretty well, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going along pretty well so far. And they, and the folks from Crook are communicating well with folks downtown from what I've seen.
Yeah.
What you've experienced, yeah. They'll fielding questions and very specific things, which couldn't answer in the last few months, but they can be answered now for the most part. So, there's a lot of things that I've seen some, conversations with some of the other business folks downtown. They're going, hey, what's going to happen? Yeah. And they've been really well about communicating, fielding questions. So, yeah. So they definitely want to work with everybody and get in and out as quick as possible. So.
So what do you think,
Tides hold up.
when do you think it'd be a good time to have us go over there?
probably sometime next week. They're going to be starting to again put that chamber system together. It's something they've put together. They just came off of a job. I think it was Edward Little
Edward
School,
Little.
that they put a bunch of these systems, bunch of these trains in place. So I mean, it's something that they're familiar with. They'll move along pretty quick as they can. I mean, but I think it's anytime mid next week if folks are interested. If you want to look at your schedules and
Yeah.
just let me know what might work, we can just post it. If there's a quorum, we can post it as a public meeting. And if it's not, if you don't have a quorum, that's fine. Just let me know when you want to go down. I go down probably 3 times a day at the moment anyways this week. So I do pop in and out. We can go down anytime, and the engineers are on site on an average of 20 hours a week, depending on what's going on. That flexes here and there, depending on what's going on, but I think they weren't at all on site last week because there was no construction.
Yeah.
But
Maybe you
I
could-
will, sorry, go
I was gonna
ahead.
say, maybe you can just send us all an email with a couple of times or dates, and then we'll
Do it that way.
see have the majority.
Yeah, just fill it out and say, yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, we'll attest to our town manager's ability to direct traffic and move cones around. We did pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kobe and Gale folks have been great because so many people do cut through there. They've kind of been put out a little bit with the moving of cones and coordinating it with the way we've got traffic flow now. I think it's hopefully better.
Yeah.
But the first beginning parts of it weren't easy.
I'll turn my hat around here. It's not our first rodeo down there, so it's yeah, we work fine. So the guys know what they're doing. They can people where they need to go. So it'll go smoothly. Awesome. How's Civic ready? You got
That's
about
great.
150 people?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it was 10 more yesterday morning when I looked at it. So folks are slowly getting in there. I didn't get a chance to get it in the paper again this week, but my plan was just to take the kind of the image we have with the QR code and get it in the paper. We have that poster someone had made up, and then I added the Civic Ready QR code. So I think if I can get that in there and run that for a couple of weeks, hopefully that'll help.
Yeah, it'll grow.
But we have 900 something people on the constant contact list, and I've sent 2 emails to that group for the first time in a year. Saying please shift over to that. I'll
Yeah.
probably do one more, just to try and do that because we haven't seen a ton come over from there.
Yeah. Okay.
We've had nobody sign up as of yesterday morning for our general updates, or agendas. So, most folks have signed up for the parking lot and road traffic updates.
I didn't sign up for the general stuff. I think they did.
So if we were to send stuff out through there, no one's getting it. We've had some folks that are dog owners, sign up, tax club folks. We've had a couple tax club folks. But no one signed up for the general as of yesterday morning.
All right. Work on it.
Where a lot of it's
Work
gonna
on it.
funnel, a lot of it will funnel too.
Yeah. Work on it, but yeah, it's a new system, so we'll get there. Oh, awesome. How are things going? We've got Michael Hayden over here. So how you doing, man? Yeah. Well,
I guess, shoreline zone updates.
Oh, great.
yeah, 'cause we can,
When you're ready.
it doesn't, oh, yeah, we can do that now or, yeah.
For you?
Major issues, just.
Are you enjoying it?
Do we, if it's okay with the board, well, Michael's here, he doesn't have to hang up the whole thing. We, I mean, we can take him now because we've got code enforcement stuff and then he was gonna bring us up to speed on shoreline zone update. So if you want, is there anything else on the manager's report?
No, we can come back if you want to go to that, and then if you
I was
want, we
thinking,
can jump.
Michael's
to
got stuff to do. Yeah, we can, yeah, bring him up now and.
Yeah, and when he's done, if you want, we can go. Amanda's on now too.
Yeah, I know, man, just come on so we can get the, yeah, so. Come on up and introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, Michael Martone, town planner.
I was, well, Dan had, the question we're asking, how's, you guys are juggling code enforcement right now and
We're juggling.
and
Yeah,
how,
yeah.
how we doing?
It's interesting to
Yeah.
relearn some of the code from that perspective and the process. New things come up with every application and just kind of adding it. I think we've known the ordinances need some work. So just add it to the list of when we get there.
You are seeing some, on the other page, you're seeing some issues with working with the other end now, right?
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of it, I think, is just clarifying. Some of it is, I was always looking at it from a kind of an applicant's perspective of like, make it clear for them, but now having to like take an application and go through this process, I'm like, oh,
Gotcha.
for Andy and I, from the code enforcement
Checking
perspective.
with Michael, I'm like, how do you read this? 'Cause that's how I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
here's how we've been
Yeah.
doing it, but I think it should be this way. And so it's just like, if it's unclear to us, then you get the inconsistencies and some of the stuff was just kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, one of the ones I picked up the other day was in the administration section of, administering a permit when it's required, the second paragraph, I think it was 1 or 2 sentences, maybe just the one, but it said very clearly when, how's the word?
It's like a change in ownership.
Change in the ownership of the enterprise occurs, that's considered a change of use. So even if it was retail to retail, another retail operation comes in, that
Oh,
without a definition for ownership of the enterprise, or however it was worded, it reads to us now that it hasn't changed. It's been this way for who knows how long. But it kind of gets at a change of use, kind of like this, the need, if that's in there and effective and we're going to apply it consistently, do we need to have business licensing? If the point of business licensing was to know when these changes happen and make sure the personal property is assessed. And so we just, with that in mind, like kind of go through this with a couple, there's businesses that are coming in now. So I think I think we generally know of probably 6 or so in the last couple months. So
are we getting behind on anything as far as, I mean, it's extra workload for you guys. How are we keeping up with?
I'm sure we're not as speedy as it was.
I know, I just, it's an extra.
yes,
It's a huge amount of.
Extra work, but you already have extra work, so it's a concern for us. We don't want you to be
Yeah.
trying to burn
Yeah.
anybody out here, so.
Can I ask a question about code enforcement? Because it came up at the county meeting as well, and the idea of having a regional code enforcement officer, but then you'd have to adopt like similar standards across Isn't there a state code enforcement standards for some of this stuff
Some of
that you
them.
could just adopt?
Shoreland zone's an example where there's a model shoreland
Right.
zone ordinance.
But isn't it for plumbing and electricity and all this?
Plumbing's a lot easier. I don't know too
Yeah.
many folks other than the fees that have modified the state plumbing code. But when it comes to ordinances and land use regulation, there's a model for shoreland zone, which shouldn't differ too much from town to town, but depending on the last time towns did an update and if they got them all, I think we're finding, we need to do a more thorough review of ours to make sure just how consistent it is with the current rules. So there's a couple, like I know we had someone ask about removing an invasive species on the shoreline, within the shoreline zone. And we don't have anything in our ordinance that mentions invasive species. So I just reached out to Colin Clark. I said, is there anything in there that I'm missing that is at the state level that does allow this? Sure enough, it's in the chapter 1000, but we haven't caught up. So, the way the state does it, they assume that we're following the changes at the statute, within the legislature as they happen, and we should just adopt it, and things fall through the cracks. So Michael and I are at least having a chance to see those things,
Yeah.
those issues, and throw them on our or Amanda's radar at some point in the planning board to work through.
But the issue of having a regional code enforcement officer was interesting.
It is, and I think Max from Mid-Coast Council of Governments, who spends a lot of time contracted with Waldoboro. He sees it as like it'd be much easier to consider doing if there was a standardized ordinance across towns. It's when you got one person like George was doing. Even, I mean, we didn't contract and share him with the other towns, but he worked for 2 other towns doing code. And Wiscasset, Newcastle, and Damariscotta, I assure you, are very different land use ordinances.
Right.
And even within shoreline zone, there's going to be differences.
Yeah.
And so he's
Change on
looking
the
at
needs of the
3
town
different
and-
ones. Every time he gets an application, hopefully he remembers which town and application he's reviewing when he does it. But,
Right.
and so it can be challenging. And if it, Max said if it was standardized, it'd make it a lot simpler. And so that's something to think about. And I don't know if towns could agree. I mean, with shoreline zone, if you're starting with the benchmark the state puts out, maybe you can agree on that.
Yeah.
But the land use stuff is very different.
Yeah, I think as we get closer to having to enforce the like building codes, the technical building codes, MUBEC and electrical, those
Oh, yeah.
I think are really a good opportunity for regional. The land use and all of that is local, our local flood hazard, any of the other ordinances that are purely just local. You got to keep every one of those in your head if you're gonna, because they're just, every town is different.
Say building code, you can, I mean, there's state and federal and whatever statutes for
Right.
that, but.
Yeah,
on the land
that's
use stuff, it's
consistent
gonna be-
across the whole state. So I think, that's going to be a big burden when we do have to eventually, if we get there, who knows what the future holds, but at least that could be the kind of thing where we can spread that cost and burden with neighbors.
Well, because the other thing is that there seems to be a huge need for code enforcement officers right now. And
Yeah.
Necessity.
Yeah,
a huge number of.
How
I
did
was
you
just
get
talking-
trained for it?
Honestly, I think a lot of it's experience. And that's, so one of the interesting things, having worked with George and then also now having to do it and working with Andy on it, is trying to figure out what are the different roles and what, because there are some roles that are very much like administrative, and you're in the office, make sure are the fees paid, you're doing a lot of paperwork. And then there's a serious component of like going out and looking at the building and being like, that is not built properly, or understanding what the words in the ordinance say and seeing what the physical reality on the ground is and the practical application of it. So those are, I'm just kind of trying to think through like what a reasonable process is for coming in. So for an applicant who's coming in, and also just for the town to deal with all of this.
And it all has to be done in a relatively timely fashion.
Yeah.
Because you have like like a new construction. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to get in people's way. You're trying to
Absolutely.
keep them, the effort
Yeah.
is to make it work for them. So.
Right.
Not only should it and do we want it to be, but the ordinance actually says it shall be decided within 5 days on all residential permits and in 10
right.
days for commercial.
Yeah.
So in a situation
So we've got
situation
an
like this, I assure you, I can't speak for Michael, but I know the ones I'm looking at are absolutely not within
the timeframe.
It's physically impossible. I
it-
mean,
boy,
that's sort of,
Yeah.
for you guys
Yeah.
to tackle that, yeah.
And that's,
Following up is just not, I'm not following up on the 5-day one for sure. I mean, in completeness. So some of them don't come complete to us and we gotta let them
Yeah.
know. We still need this information. That happens often.
yeah.
But
The position, we haven't advertised it yet. Okay.
no. That's-
Yeah.
You bump something else off of the list.
Well, also because they're still trying to.
I'll write
figure
an ad. They won't look very good, but.
But you're still also trying to figure out the job description before you can advertise it.
I think, yeah, and I imagine anybody who comes in will be able to be flexible and say, oh, okay, you're gonna take this off my plate and give me this. Like, we can kind of still adjust as we go. But yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of tinkering that's gonna have to happen. And, to Andy's point earlier, when we find these like one sentence things in the ordinance of like, oh, this actually needs to be reviewed for a use change. For me, I start to think, like, well, does this make sense? And we don't really have the discretion to say, oh, well, we just want to enforce that because it doesn't make sense. So I think that when we do eventually address this in ordinance changes, that's some of the conversation is like, well, the ordinance said we should be enforcing this or reviewing X or Y. Does it make sense for the timeline of actually getting things through? Do we need to review whatever the thing is in that fashion? And the whole process needs to be always needs to, I think, be looked at and made sure that it's efficient, because I don't know anybody who enjoys coming to the town office for most anything. Maybe it's a good group here, so they like seeing us personally, maybe, but no one enjoys going through the review process for building a new house, moving a business in, anything like that. So making it as painless as possible. Hopefully we'll get there, but this is a good learning experience to like go through and see what's really in there, and we'll make
And
lemonade out of
who
it, I
does
guess.
make the changes to the land use ordinance?
It's similar to the process that the LD 2003 changes are going through. So, like, I can certainly propose edits and revisions and amendments to it. I mean, Andy can, anybody really could. But it requires a public hearing at the planning board, and then come to the select board for getting on a warrant and scheduling a special town meeting or town meeting. And yeah, exactly. There's notice requirements, and it's, set by statute. And I mean, some of it's in our ordinance, but there's guidelines from the state and locally. So, yeah.
Michael, while we have you right here, do you want to do the updates on
The shoreline, yeah. So in addition, one of the things that you probably remember you saw, well, I know Dan was there at the public hearing for the LD 2003, which we may just redo that public hearing again. I think it probably did meet whatever the minimums were, but we have the kind of the flexibility of the timeline. So if we can, we might renotice that. But one of the things that came up in that review and a project that came before the planning board was the density standards in the shoreland zone in the downtown, which is the commercial district. So because we have sewer and water service in the downtown, and it is already a pretty well-developed area, we can allow more density and more flexibility in development than most other areas. So, which is, similar to any other, if you don't have sewer, there's only so much the state's going to let you get to as far as density. So, and this isn't necessarily for one project, but somebody wanted to put apartments in what was the attorney building that was right at the water. And so we kind of used that. The planning board looked at that and didn't really have any, I don't know if it was like moral objection to it, but they said they didn't have any real objection to the project itself of adding some housing downtown. But the ordinance the ordinance, the shoreland zoning ordinance, I think was just, it was like you can have 1 unit per 10,000 square feet of lot area. So, which isn't totally unusual, but in the downtown, if you look at some of the other buildings that are down there and what the land use ordinance says, really it gets closer to 40 dwelling units per acre. So, well, actually, what I should say is the existing development downtown in some of those lots is much higher than that. But when you look at the downtown and when you look at what that parcel, which I think was, I don't, it worked out to basically be like 10 or 12 units could have gone in there if shoreland wasn't a thing in the normal land use ordinance. The land use ordinance would have allowed maybe 10 units in there.
Okay.
And so what I did was I went into the shoreland, our shoreland zoning ordinance and updated this to clarify some things and make it consistent with the land use ordinance. So I know it's kind of weird. There's like two ordinances that layer on top of each other, but
Your floodplain for a third one.
their floodplain is also there. Yeah, there's historic, although that building does not fall within historic preservation, interestingly enough. So that's basically what these changes are. Tried to clarify it and just update minimum lot size, 5,000 square feet. Some of this I'll also say is an attempt to make legal what's already down there. People seem to enjoy the downtown and like the downtown, so making it so that those buildings and properties are conforming. So if they want to do something with their property, we found out that mixed use was not legal under the current land use ordinance in the downtown. So that's being changed in LD 2003 as well,
Right.
to allow properties to continue to have mixed uses. So anyway, so that's what it is. Most everything in the table I didn't change, and the back of this, anything that's in green is changed. Anything that's not in green, not changed. It's
How did you arrive at the 5,000?
just looking at some of the lots that are down there. There are lots that are smaller than 5,000, but I figured 5,000 square feet is not totally unusual down there.
Basically, because
Yeah.
you gotta have 100 of them.
Right, yes, you do. Yes, exactly. You do have to have 100 feet on the waterfront. If you don't have any waterfront, then that's different. Our land use ordinance, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but they also have, standards there that are
So that
aligned
particular
with
building
this.
that brought this up to head, that would be, so it would fit into this requirement?
Well, I mean, I think they definitely had more than 5,000 square feet. The building, even under, I think the most generous shoreland zoning that we could give, the building's still probably too close to the water. I think the best that the state will let you do is allow people to get, they have to be at least 25 feet from the high water line, astronomical high water line. But, and that I don't think is 25 feet from the water. So they're allowed to continue to I assume legally existing nonconformity, but the building's there. If they wanted to put, if they wanted to max out their density, like I said, I think it was like 10 or 12 units they could have put in there. So that's kind of where that works. And I should just say, so they ran through this with the planning board and they were generally in support. One member did voice concern that 40 units an acre seems very high. At first was totally against it, thought that was way too high. Then when we had a conversation and realized normally people don't really think about density in terms of units per acre, because it's kind of it's easy to enforce, but it's kind of not how we think about it. There's not a lot of 1 acre parcels in the downtown. Certainly someone could consolidate. And I think one thing we should do is get regulations around building size and scale so that, this density is, again, people seem to like the buildings that are down there and some of the density far exceeds this, but the buildings are of a scale, which is a whole different metric that at some point I think we should address, and the comprehensive plan discusses it. So this is a kind of a first step of trying to legalize kind of what's down there.
So
It's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of pieces and yeah,
multiple ordinances and
yeah.
lot size and.
So anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you. Assuming it's okay with the select board, I will take it to the planning board, schedule a public hearing for them to move forward and hopefully we'll get it in line with the LD 2003 land use updates.
Think so, think so.
Okay.
Well, this is updated, so sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think I have anything else for you now. There's other stuff going on, but
Thank you.
we're dealing with it.
Yeah. Thank you. I know you guys got a lot on your plate. Yeah.
How you're doing.
We get some help. Awesome. Michael, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Michael.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Mike.
So a couple of things. We do have town attorneys on now. What do we have left time wise? It'd be nice if we could clean up.
Bust through
You
this.
can go through quick if you.
Yeah, let's get what we have cleaned up. We don't have much left.
Postal
and-
meter quote
Yeah.
is pretty
That-
straightforward. The one we have is terms running up, the changes the postal service has made to the things that
Mhm.
need to be included on the postmark code now, or our machine is not something we can continue to use after the end
Right.
of the year. They did give us a number. They did offer to look at something slightly different. I think this was to own. There was an option to just rent. That might change the pricing a little bit. It's not big dollars. I mean, it was more of like it's 30% increase, you know, and I said,
But it had an increase in 5 years. though.
right, and so I asked, like, is there a way that, do you structure this in a way that, you know, if it's a 5-year contract, that year one's this and it goes up 2 or 5% every year, like that's kind of normal over a longer term, and I always don't structure it that way, so we just didn't realize, I mean, we're talking $300 maybe over the course of the 12 months, so it's fine, it's just
Yeah.
the kind of the principle of it, so not a huge deal, it just needs to be, I mean, the alternative is we just don't have one. It does cut down on our time, not having to go downtown, which they used to do. We
You
can
still
just,
get a discount?
we do, yeah.
You go
it's-
downtown?
No, we don't. If
No.
we do it
So,
here, we get the
do it
discount.
here.
Like
Going
one
down there, it's
Yeah.
just slower down there.
Well, and you don't take people out of the office. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
much more efficient to have the
Mhm.
setup.
I think we
yeah.
save like 3 or 4 cents or
Yes.
something.
Mhm.
And we're all budgeted for this and everything, right? You've got,
It's a little higher, but.
well, yeah, but we got it.
360.
Yeah.
You don't need a vote or anything, do you?
For good measure, I think, just because it's a multi-year contract, as small as it might be, just the 5-year nature of it.
Okay.
It's still subject, I believe, to, you know, budget passing, but if the board wants to make a motion to sign the 5-year contract.
I'll make a motion that we sign the 5-year contract for a new postal meter.
All right, Don made the motion. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Dan wants that one? All right, sounds good. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? All right, sounds good. So incidentally, I chatted with somebody before I came up here and they're curious to what the meeting was about tonight, and I went through a few things and I said, we're discussing a postal meter. And they said, well, I guess I'm not going to attend tonight. It's wild stuff.
I'm sure that's the lead. but-
Yeah. The postal meter. And release of tax liability. Holy moly, this is the heater road.
This is the little
This
piece
is the
of
piece of-
property
the little
that we
bit.
found when we were doing the heater road work.
Yeah.
The Gore,
Yep.
Gore, they said.
Really?
Gore. Yeah, I
Oh,
haven't heard
okay.
that term. What's a Gore?
I
I
don't-
need to look it up.
I assume that's just a sliver of what's left.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little sliver, like, if it's gore.
If it's gore.
If it's gore. If it's gore.
It was 200.
Defined in the land use, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to define that and update that.
So this is just a button add to our piece.
Yeah, do you want a motion on this one too?
We do need.
Yeah, we do need a motion on this one.
So this is what we had kind of agreed to with them, is that they'll transfer it, you know, to us, which we filed the deed, as long as they don't have to pay the back tax, which for the 2 years, this year now being the second year, because last year was the first year they got one at all.
Mhm.
It's $116.74 with the interest that's accrued to that date.
Okay.
So
All right,
Yeah, so we just need a motion to release the tax liability, right?
Yeah.
Make a motion to release the tax liability of $116.74.
All right, thank you, Dan. I think I heard Tom second.
Mhm.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Okay, so that's more or less settled heater road, right? Is
that's
that
right. I was got, before you leave, I'll just
Do we
pass this down for
Yeah.
signatures.
Yeah.
Okay, do we need to talk about the E EV?
yeah, the EV.
We skipped
We
one.
can do that after, if Amanda, if you want to go into executive session while the attorney's on the clock, and then we can go back to finishing any
We can
unfinished.
come
if you'd
back
like.
out and do that
Yeah.
one, finish
Okay.
it if you want. Yeah, that sounds good. So, okay. So, yeah, I'll call for executive session in just a second here, and when we do, we'll shut it down and we'll kick everybody out, all that fun stuff, so.
But
not
not for
before.
long.
So, yeah, all right. So with that, I'll move, make a motion that we, Michael, move into executive session pursuant to one MRSA 406 E for
Thank you.
discussion with legal counsel. We do have two items we're gonna discuss in there, but it's all under the E classification, so.
See you, Nolan.
Thank you,
that,
Nolan.
I'll take a second.
Yep.
Here's a second.
I'll second.
John seconds, all right. So motion,
Now we gotta vote on it.
seconds, yep, all those in favor? All right, everybody in favor, all five, yep, all right. Okay, we'll give everybody a minute to catch up